Get Rich Education is brought to you by Norada Real Estate Corporate Direct and Ridge Lending Group. Cash flow real estate investors, this is Get Rich Education's Keith Weinhold. Did you know that you can finance up to 35 income properties all with one lender? Ridge Lending Group specializes in investment property loans, and they do it in almost every U.S. state. Ridge has worked with tens of thousands of real estate investors and homeowners all over the country. They've been doing this for investors for so long that at this point, they've helped more families realize their dreams of becoming real estate investors than any other mortgage lender in the country. To find out more, visit ridgelendinggroup.com.
Welcome to Get Rich Education with Keith Weinhold, giving you information and ideas on the investment that has turned more ordinary people into millionaires and billionaires than anything else, and can provide you with more wealth and happiness than you ever thought possible. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, and educator, Keith Weinhold.
Welcome to Get Rich Education. This is milestone episode 100. Yes, I'm Keith Weinhold. Thanks for being here. And so many of you have been here for all 100 shows, and it's just difficult for me to express how grateful I am for that. With listeners in 168 world nations, this is the one investing show out there that is educational, inspirational, and regularly quite actionable at the same time. We've got some special, elements later on today's show to help celebrate episode 100 here. We'll do a fun retrospective as we look back. We're even going to go back to the very beginning, as in you'll hear a little snippet from episode number 1. After that, you're also going to hear from Get Rich Education's own business developer, John Collins, as he stops by to chat with us here for a while. This is the show where you've probably heard things that you've never heard before. Over these 100 episodes, you've been given ideas. Those ideas have opened doors for you. But that's not enough. You've got to walk through that door that the idea opened. That means that you've got to take that informed action, or else you really aren't any better off than when you began if it's only an idea that sits idle. Chances are that if you have taken action on what I've talked about, then you are wealthier today than when this show began back in episode number 1. Yes, you are likely wealthier now if you have been an action taker. Well, what is wealth anyway? What is wealth? Well, I contend that wealth isn't measured in money. Wealth is measured in time. Well, how exactly do you measure wealth with time? Let's dig into this first, okay? And, people love getting perspective on the time versus money confluence, and the trade-off between those two things really fascinates people. So let's do this. We're going to measure your wealth right now. We're going to measure your wealth right here, right now. And here's exactly how. Imagine that you stop working today. Stop working today. And I'll bet that thought sounds pretty good, actually. You probably just assumed that I stop right there, right? But look, if you stopped working today, how much time would you have left before you ran so short on money that your lifestyle would be diminished? That length of time right there, that's how you measure wealth. For you, is that 7.7 years, like one of my investor friends recently told me that his is? Yeah, he's actually calculated it. And by the way, 7.7 years, that's better than 99% plus of people. How do you calculate it? You just take your monthly passive cash flow and figure out how much you and your dependents need to live well on and calculate what that number is. Yeah, you've got your net worth figured to figure in as well. Once your passive cash flow will no longer support you, you could next eat into your net worth accumulation. All right, for you, maybe that figure is 18 months worth of wealth. And you know what? 18 months would be better than most people by far. If you can live 18 months without working and maintain the same lifestyle that you currently live, that then is 18 months worth of wealth. Your wealth would be 18 months. What if your wealth is only 12 months? You know what? That would be better than most people, most Americans even. What if your wealth is as little as 6 months, meaning that you have enough passive income to not have to work for 6 months until your lifestyle diminishes? You're still better off than most people. Can you believe that? Yes, most people have under 30 days of wealth. Yes, if they stopped working at their workaday job, their quality of life would be substantially diminished in under 30 days. They'd be broke, and I'm sure that some of you are shocked. Well, others, you might not be surprised in the least. Some of you that have owned income property for a long time like I have are not surprised at all that most people's wealth is less than 30 days because you have tenants like I do that pay the rent like the 8th of every month instead of the 1st of every month because they're waiting for a paycheck just to keep the roof over their head. They're the more vulnerable people in society, but not the most vulnerable, and yet they're paying that $50 late fee every month just because their wealth state is that fragile, and they're the people that can least afford to pay it. So that's how to determine your wealth as measured in time. If your wealth was 6 months before listening to GRE from episode 1, now maybe, hopefully, it is a number of years. Well, just to recap some of the content from our first 100 episodes, GRE is the show where you might have first heard some of those mantras that I like to wax poetic on, like, don't follow money, make money follow you. Or how about, do the right thing, then do things right. And then there's the whole concept of the ROTI. The ROTI is your most important investor metric. Everyone knows what that stands for. That's your return on time invested. What else do I like to say? The scarcity mentality is abundant and the abundance mentality is scarce. It all starts off with your mentality. That's why episode number 1 was called Your Abundance Mindset. You don't want to be debt-free. You want to be financially free. How about that concept? Don't be debt-free. Be financially free. And of course, don't quit your daydream. Well, how about some of those mantras that we follow up on that aren't terms that I made up? I mean, there's so many other great quotes out there from others that I try to follow. For example, live where you want to live and invest where the numbers make sense by Robert Helms. How about formal education will make you a living, self-education will make you a fortune? That's by the late Jim Rohn. Or simply Be Who You Are Becoming by Russell Gray, who was our episode 41 guest. Or how about what might be my favorite quote of all time and one that might embody the basis of Get Rich Education more than any other quote that I can think of. And it's one sentence, really, in which living it has changed my life. And living this quote will change your life. And it is one that takes constant practice. And that is, of course, Robert Kiyosaki's, don't live below your means, expand your means. Now, that's a quote attributed to Rich Dad. Actually, I'm not sure who really coined that expansionary phrase, whether it was Mr. Kiyosaki or whether it was the co-author of the seminal 1997 book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, whom most people don't know. That's Sharon Lechter that co-authored Rich Dad, Poor Dad alongside Robert Kiyosaki. And as you know, I've had both of those guests on the show here. We hosted Sharon Lechter in episode 42, and you heard Robert Kiyosaki here with me on episode 84. And we're going to listen to some select parts of my interview with Robert Kiyosaki here today. Since this show's inception, I've also become a regular active contributing writer to Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Advisors myself. And you can read all of my blogs at getricheducation.com/blog. And I write every word of the blogs myself there on the Rich Dad Advisors page. And it also appears again at getricheducation.com/blog. Now, we've been talking about how wealth is, in a sense, measured in time today. The amount of time where if you quit actively working, you quit your job, what that length of time is where your passive income could sustain yourself. If you're looking to increase that amount of time, whether your wealth is currently 2 months or 7.7 years, if you're looking to increase that time, look at your net worth and determine if your net worth is generating enough passive income. Okay, and there's a way to measure this. I'm going to call this, for lack of a better term, your passive portfolio yield. Okay, your passive portfolio yield. We'll just call it your PPY until I can think of a better term sometime maybe. You determine your passive portfolio yield by taking your annual passive income and dividing it by your net worth. That's it. Your passive annual income, which is the income that you don't have to work for, divided by your net worth. The net worth, of course, being the value of all of your assets minus all of your liabilities. So when you think of your PPY, well, what is most people's passive portfolio yield figure? It is exactly 0. Most people don't even know what passive income is. Now, to give an example, I have one investor buddy whose PPY is 4.1%. Now, I don't know his numbers that go into that calculation, but if you would just say that his annual passive income is $41,000 and divide it by his $1 million net worth, that yields a 4.1% PPI. So what's your annual passive income divided by your net worth? And you can determine how much of your net worth is producing income for you. That's what that tells you. See, that little exercise right there, that might very well lead you to identify and determine that you have equity and accumulated value in your portfolio that is not working for you. Often those sources are trapped in retirement funds and home equity. That's value that's not producing income or lifestyle for you. So really that exercise of determining your PPY, that could very well help you identify and free up some of that trapped net worth and convert more of your net worth into cash flow. Convert your equity into cash flow. And when you do that, you often lose little or nothing off of your net worth. And that now begins producing cash flow as well. And what you've just done there is you increased your wealth, which is measured in time. So turning your equity into cash flow, that could very well increase your wealth from 2 months to 2 years or something like that. So you didn't have to gain $1 of net worth at all, yet your wealth increased because you converted equity to cash flow. Or perhaps your current wealth is 3 years and reallocating your net worth into cash flowing assets increases your wealth from 3 years to 6 years. Or perhaps reallocating your equity into cash flow will move your wealth from 10 years to infinity, which means you're effectively retired, whatever retirement means to you. You are financially free when you have enough durable passive income such that your lifestyle needs and wants are equaled or exceeded. That's one way to achieve wealth faster. Look at your passive portfolio yield first, identify equity that is not producing cash flow, and then deploy that equity. All right, determining things like your wealth measured in time and your passive portfolio yield, that can bring you more happiness sooner. As you've learned, you want to use that to buy time that you can then convert to things like peace, joy, happiness, love, and freedom. Those are those touchy-feely things that you ultimately want, but that people, well, guys especially, just aren't supposed to talk about or something. So that's how to get financially free. Or you can live like some people that instead strive to be debt-free rather than financially free. And their idea of a great night is a microwave pizza and watching America's Got Talent. Best and highest use right there, right? No way. You can do that a night or two a week, but there's more to life than that. Expand your means instead. You can still appreciate what you've got even while you expand what you have. You actually can do both. So appreciate what you've got even while you expand what you have. And you know, I guess one example that I can think of for appreciating what you've got is taking something that irritates most people, okay? Take traffic and commuting. Traffic and commuting. First of all, try to design a life for yourself that minimizes traffic and commuting, okay? Until we have autonomous cars and we're getting closer, you are likely spending suboptimal time in a car. Now, I know that a lot of you listen to Get Rich Education while you're commuting. One of people's most common complaints in life are traffic complaints, okay? Traffic is moving at a crawl on I-95 or the 405, and you're stuck in it again. Now, and granted, I've set up a life where traffic problems are minimal, but, you know, the few times that I am stuck in traffic, that's one of those times where I look around and I appreciate what I've already got. Okay, I look around what I've got when I'm stuck in traffic. I'm in a luxury car. I'm with my terrific wife. I'm fit. And I've got beautiful scenery. There's just so much here to appreciate. And you know, sometimes I hear people that have designed lives for themselves that include long commutes, which is sometimes a temporary condition that you have to endure. Sure, sometimes you've got to do what you've got to do. But you know what people say about that is this, okay? And this really gets me. I don't follow this at all. Here's what people say they have long commutes. I got an old beater car because I commute a lot, so I don't want to put a lot of miles on something nice. Oh my gosh. I mean, that is just so backwards right there. That is so backwards. If you're going to spend a lot of time inside a car as a long haul round trip commuter, well, wouldn't you want something nice? Okay. If you're going to be spending a lot of time somewhere, wouldn't you want that place to be nice? But so many people, the scarcity mentality, they just don't think of it that way. They're conditioned to think in a scarce way. Yes, I guess they save money by driving a beater car, but they don't have the benefit of actually letting themselves enjoy their commute as much as they can. And that diminished quality of lifetime is something that they will never get back. Put production ahead of consumption, though. Get your cash flowing assets first. Yes, no doubt about it. Yet it is truly okay to enjoy what you have and expand to the upside at the same time. See, scarce minds think in terms of one or the other, and abundant minds think in terms of both. Enjoy what you have while you expand to the upside. We'll be right back. This is Get Rich Education, milestone episode 100. We're going to have some fun with this milestone as soon as we come back.
Garrett Sutton here, Robert Kiyosaki's asset protection attorney and the author of Loopholes of Real Estate. As an American or foreign-based investor in U.S. real estate, you know we are a litigious society. You know that you need to protect your real estate and paper asset holdings with the right mix of LLCs and corporations. My firm, Corporate Direct, not only forms these entities, but importantly, we properly maintain them too. If you fail to follow the corporate formalities, you can lose it all in an instant. Corporate Direct is your source for LLC protection and maintenance in all 50 states. Visit corporatedirect.com or call 800-600-1760. Mention Get Rich Education for a free bonus. Switch your resident agent service to us and receive another bonus. It's all good. We look forward to assisting you at corporatedirect.com.
Are you having a hard time finding great investment properties? Unfortunately, the best deals are rarely found locally. Successful investing begins with the right properties in the right markets. Norada Real Estate provides everything you need to invest in the best deals across the U.S. Our simple, proven system will help you create real wealth and passive monthly cash flow. Get your free copy of the ultimate guide to passive real estate investing at noradarealestate.com/guide. That's NORADA realestate.com/guide.
This is our Rich Dad, Poor Dad author, Robert Kiyosaki. Listen to Get Rich Education with Keith Weinhold. And the reason I respect Keith, he's a very strong, smart, bright young man.
Welcome back to Get Rich Education. This is milestone episode 100, and we're taking some time to look back. I launched this show almost 2 years ago after having to overcome some fear. There was some fear of failure, some fear of the unknown, just like anyone has before starting a major new venture in life. Here's how episode 1 began, October 10th, 2014. Welcome to the inaugural Get Rich Education podcast. A few days after release, I learned that even though I only do a weekly show, I had 45 downloads in one of those first early days. And it was like, hey, there are people other than my friends actually listening to the show. And never did I think it would grow into what it's become today. In shows 10, 20, and 30, we did a 3-episode series called Vocab Rehab, where I just introduced you to what some common investor terms mean, because I hadn't seen another show do just that. And I think it's really important to educate and not intimidate. So we wanted to be familiar with the terminology that we were going to use thereafter. Yes, educate. This is Get Rich Education after all. Episode 13 was where I took the microphone myself so that I could tell you about how driverless cars, also known as autonomous cars, will change the geography of real estate and a lot more. Episode 25 is where I hosted Rich Dad Advisor Ken McElroy here. That was his first of 2 appearances here where he gave us this memorable quote.
That's why I like real estate. It's really dumb and it moves slow. I mean, it really does.
It's great to know that we're spending most of this show discussing something dumb and slow. I love it, though. In a sense, Ken is right. Real estate moves slowly enough so that you can get ahead of trends and be a profiteer. Then we're in that area of the show where a blogger began referring to me as the anti-Dave Ramsey, which I absolutely love. The anti-Dave Ramsey is what I was being called. And Dave is a popular financial commentator, and I'm not bashing Dave. He's a good guy, a really good guy, in fact. We just do two different things. Dave tells people to erode and defer the quality of their life, strive to be middle class, and live debt-free. I tell ordinary people how to expand their quality of life, acquire wealth, and not focus on being debt-free, but that you can live a life of plenty when you focus on being financially free instead. In episode 41, I hosted longtime influencer Russell Gray from the Real Estate Guys. He spoke about real estate syndication and also just spoke to the durability of real estate as an investment vehicle.
At the end of the day, real estate is real. It serves a basic human need. It's not a fad. It isn't going anywhere. Nobody's going to come up with some technology that's going to make real estate obsolete or somehow have it not be an important part of human existence. Everybody's going to need a place to live, place to work, place to shop, place to go on vacation. Real estate is part and parcel, an integral part of human existence. And so for that reason alone, it's a solid investment.
Let's fast forward all the way to episode 81, where I hosted our youngest guest ever. That was Russell Gray's 24-year-old son, Sean Gray.
Start retired. Don't live to get paid to live.
Man, start out retired. Don't live to get paid to live. In life, if you make money your end goal, you will live an unfulfilled, soulless life. If you keep asking yourself the question, what can I do to make money? What can I do to make money? Well, then you need to start asking yourself better questions. Instead, if you ask yourself this question, what can I do to build the sort of lifestyle that I want to live? And you make that the end goal, you won't merely be living to get paid, you'll be getting paid to live. Let's go 3 episodes later to episode 84 when I hosted Rich Dad Poor Dad author Robert Kiyosaki here. And I just have to say thanks to Robert Kiyosaki and all of his Rich Dad advisors for being such frequent contributors to Get Rich Education here. Altogether, they've appeared as guests on 8 of the first 100 shows. Let's listen to what Robert Kiyosaki told us here, and he was quite direct with you.
If you're saving money, going to school, investing for the long term in the stock market, buying a house and getting out of debt, you're the village idiot today. That's not it. That's high. That may be high IQ from 30 years ago, but it's low EQ. It takes EQ, emotional intelligence, to actually take action and make changes. But most people cannot get rid of those stupid words in their heads. Save money and invest for the long term in the stock market. Buy a house because your house is an asset. If you don't get rid of those words in your head, you'll probably be a victim in the next few years.
15 years ago, Robert Kiyosaki made a famous prediction in his book called Rich Dad Prophecy. He predicted that there will be a fantastic economic collapse in the year 2016. Well, he actually modified that prediction right here on the show. Kiyosaki also gives us a lot of other memorable material in that one. He even told us what he personally likes to invest in today. That was all there in episode 84. Speaking of predictions, in episode 90, I hosted popular commentator and economist Harry Dent, where we talked demographics, and he gave us loads of predictions. Cue it up.
Markets are perverted. They're programmed to only go up. A healthy market goes up and then retraces and corrects and digests the gains and then goes up again in a stair-step fashion. Ever since early 2009, the markets have gone up and only seen some substantial corrections starting in late 2014, and now we're seeing more of that. So it's showing we're starting to top. But the markets just are programmed to go up. That's not a healthy market, and that means they keep getting stretched and stretched. And when they finally do go down, they're going to go down harder.
Yeah, Harry Dent, in fact, predicting that the Dow will crater to 6,000 points by next year. I don't know whether that's going to happen or not. Harry Dent thinks so, though. Well, I've probably hosted about 40 of our first 100 episodes all by myself with no guest. We've been honored to have so many great guests here for the other 60 or so shows, really the top thought leaders in their respective fields. All right, so we had one guest in particular where, when he appeared, it really had some special meaning to me, and I think you know which one that was. That was the Robert Kiyosaki appearance, because as you know, like so many people, when I read his classic book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it changed my life. And he is a substantial influencer in the space still today. Now, I was hanging out with Robert Kiyosaki earlier this year on an investor cruise, and I brought you those shows and that coverage from Miami. But still, after the cruise, it felt big when he appeared on Get Rich Education with us for the first time. And I've got to admit to you that I was rather anxious leading up to that interview. So here's just a few seconds of how things sounded off microphone between Robert Kiyosaki and I leading up to us sitting down for a chat. So this is off mic before the interview began. And Robert and I were not in the same room physically for the interview, but I could see him in the video. He followed behind his personal assistant as they were about to walk through the door and into our meeting room. Good morning.
All right, here we are.
Okay.
All right.
Terrific.
Here's Robert.
Good morning, Mr. Kiyosaki.
Morning, how are you doing?
Oh, some music to a rather famous walk through a door there, but Robert Kiyosaki is here for good rather than evil. So lots of motivation from him here on episode 84. Over 100 episodes, we've had a lot of education, motivation, and actionable content. I want you to take action. I want you to do something. But the point isn't for you to do like 28 different things, okay? Pick a few things that resonate with you and trust your intuition. Otherwise, one would just be all over the place. What if you made raw land cash flow with the Land Geek? You bought Panama coffee farm parcels, had reef oil wells, owned 40 turnkey properties in 20 different markets, and syndicated apartment building deals while you're living in a fourplex and running an assisted living home. Okay, that would be ridiculous. What are those few things that resonate with you? Which 3 to 5 out-of-market turnkey metros are you comfortable with? I don't think you want to be in 15 of those. Okay, so those are the things you ought to ask yourself. GRE's business developer John Collins is with us today. My best friend, JC, J to the C and the place to be. John's also my best friend, so I can have some playful fun with his name. Well, what's a business developer do anyway? Well, for one thing, John helps me line up guests for the show sometimes. Now, I do travel and network at events quite a bit, so I'm fortunate enough to have met so many of our guests in person. But, well, just take what he did for the episode where I had Kira Golden on the show, okay? I hadn't met Kira before, but John found out about her, looked into it, thought she sounded great, and thought that she could add real value to you with an innovative way to make your existing rental properties produce more income for you. At John's suggestion, I also checked out Kira, and then John and I decided that Kira is the real deal, and I was happy to host her here. I'd like to welcome back to Get Rich Education, making his first appearance, and he was here on episode 52 for the one-year anniversary episode. Here he is back for milestone episode 100, Get Rich Education's business developer, John Collins.
Yeah, hey Keith, how you doing? Thanks for having me on.
Hey, appreciate having you back, man. What's on your mind?
I'm just recapping here. First of all, I want to say congratulations to you for 100 episodes. That's pretty awesome.
Appreciate that. Can hardly believe it myself.
Yeah, so with that, I mean, it's pretty cool to step back and get the bigger picture and look at how far you've come, how far we've come, and just kind of think about what the whole purpose is, what the mission is with these ideas and sharing the concepts and trying to get people to expand their mindsets and take action with some of these ideas.
Ideas are really where it's at. I mean, you're my best friend. I get a lot of ideas from you. And, it really starts with ideas for people. Ideas are what really open up a new way of thinking.
That's for sure. Just in the podcast space in general, I'm a huge consumer of podcasts, not just this one, and just information in general and ideas and all that. And I think the biggest takeaway that maybe a lot of people don't really realize in today's space is that in the information space, when we're exchanging ideas, it really has a compounding effect, quite unlike in the industrial age when we exchange physical things. For instance, if you had a can of Red Bull and I had $3 and we did an exchange, well, I give you my $3, you give me the Red Bull, and we both walk away with one thing. We both showed up with one thing. But in the information age and this idea space, you have ideas, I have ideas. We come on here, we share ideas, and we both walk away with two ideas. And that's just a compound effect. And that's just kind of an extraordinary phenomenon we're all living in here in the information age, which I think if people are aware of that, they can really take more away from some of these ideas.
That is a beautiful analogy. If you catch that, well, first of all, I would have to agree to sell a Red Bull for $3, and I'm not sure whether I'd do that or not. But in any case, ideas are like a little hinge. Little hinges open up big doors, and you've got to see the opportunity taking action that's through that big door that was just opened up with that hinge. And I love that analogy that you just made there, John. If I have a can of Red Bull and I sell it for $3, and you go ahead and buy it. Now you've got the Red Bull and I've got the $3, but we've each only got one thing or the other. But if we exchange an idea with each other in just 2 minutes, we each have and retain that same idea that we can use as a little hinge and convert into action.
Yeah, and then to take that a step further, what you're saying about taking action, now if someone actually acts on those ideas, well, boom, they just opened up a whole new world of opportunity and exploration, and of course the feedback they get from acting on those ideas, whether it's positive or negative. We've all had these negative experiences, these things we call failures, but those are all incredibly valuable learning opportunities, and the feedback we get from that just helps us go forward even farther. So I think that's the important part. We've got the ideas, you're taking action, and you're getting instant feedback from that action, good or bad, and you're using that feedback to take further action and keep moving forward. So I think that's really, it's just that repetitive process. You have to kind of keep that momentum going.
Yeah, I've said it on the show before that most people think that they have a money problem, and a lot of people listen to our show to try to go ahead and obtain more wealth. Most people think that they have a money problem, but what they really have is an idea problem, and a lack of money is really just a symptom of the underlying idea problem. We want to talk about concrete ideas on this show that you can take action on. Turnkey real estate investing. Most Americans still don't even know what turnkey real estate investing is. That is a fantastic idea where you're essentially buying someone else's fix and flip. So someone else has gone ahead and purchased the property out of foreclosure. They've got all the economies of scale there to go ahead and renovate that property and then put that property under management and then put a tenant in that property and then sell it to us, the long-term cash flow investor. How about using a self-directed IRA to amplify your investments and give you more ideas and choices than you ever thought you've had with a vehicle like that? Or what about just a few episodes ago where we have the assisted living home, how you can make $36,000 of income out of just one property. So it's really about giving you ideas that you can act on. That's where it starts.
Absolutely. And ideas are just like anything else. There's good ideas and there's bad ideas, and you have to really consider the source.
Now, John, we've largely been a real estate-centric show here because that's really an idea for people. You know, a lot of people's idea of real estate investing is flipping properties. Or if someone thinks about owning income property, their idea is that they have to be a landlord. Well, I don't think your best and highest use is either of those things, flipping or being a landlord. If you want to be a passive investor and truly amplify your return on time, be the investor. Learn about things like the 5 ways that you're paid with real estate investing through leverage appreciation. Secondly, cash flow. Thirdly, loan pay down made by somebody else. Fourthly, fantastic tax advantages. And fifthly, an inflation hedging, or even as I like to say sometimes, it's kind of like an inflation profiting benefit. And it's really all about real estate and the durability of an income stream and the durability of the investment class that real estate is itself. So what are your thoughts about real estate?
Well, I'm going to be real blunt, Keith. I mean, my thoughts are if after 100 episodes of you riffing about real estate, the benefits and all that, if the listeners haven't picked up on it already, they certainly should go back and listen to some of these episodes you've had out there. Real estate's just an incredible asset class that there's nothing else out there that really compares to it. And I'm still fascinated by the people I meet on the street just through casual conversation. For instance, last week I had an individual I talked to, a family friend who's like in the baby boom generation. They just retired about 3 years ago. And I've just asked them questions about, what their best investment was over the long run and what allowed them to reach their retirement phase of life they were in and what recommendations they could give me as a relatively young person. And I was just fascinated when he's like, oh, I have my house paid off and my best investment was my 403B that I maxed out and the pension that I got from my employer. And I thought, wow, that's crazy. Like if we taught that kind of strategy here on the podcast, that would not serve our listeners well, because I think that's an absolutely outdated playbook that's not going to work for the average person going forward. That's just an outdated, obsolete mindset. And like the real estate, the importance of that, I mean, every single dollar we spend pretty much is somehow tied to real estate, whether people realize that or not. And I think our good friend Russell Gray from the Real Estate Guys says this the best. But basically the gist is that there's a small chunk of every dollar you spend, a portion of that is going to pay for real estate. So like the gas you put in your car today, well, there's a portion of that money that is going to pay for the land the gas station's on, the pumps are on. If you go to the yoga studio, a portion of your yoga membership is going to pay for the lights and the building, the lease on the building, the insurance, whatever. If you just go down your monthly bank statement, everything is pretty much tied to real estate. Every dollar you spend, every dollar that's transacted is going back to real estate, some portion of that. And if you can put yourself on the other side of that, at least to some degree, I think you're putting yourself in a good position to benefit from some of that instead of just being on the consumer end of that, where your dollars are going to somebody else's real estate. Well, if you can put yourself on the other side of that and be capturing a few of those dollars going forward, I think that's in everybody's reach and it's to everybody's benefit. And they should really be thinking long-term like that in terms of creating a durable, repeatable monthly stream of cash flow going forward.
That is a great way to think about the durability of it. A lot of people think about real estate just in the consumer sense and a portion of every dollar that they spend, whether you bought a burrito at Chipotle or whether you spent money on your gym membership or the money that you spend at your grocery store this week. You know, some part of that goes toward paying the real estate, whether that's a commercial lease or an office lease or an employer's wages or a tech support technician occupying space. Every bit of that dollar goes to real estate. So if you can direct that back toward yourself and know how to maximize that, you can be a profiteer. Yeah, so you mentioned this 65-year-old man, this family friend that you recently talked to, and, you know, you had asked him what perhaps his best investment move was, and he was talking about his 403B plan and, you know, how he went and saved money most of his life and focused on that and got his house paid off and all that. But, you know, I think a lot of people don't realize that you don't have to defer so much gratification until later in your life. When we focus on cash flowing investments that produce income, you don't have to delay so much gratification. You can actually benefit in the short term, the intermediate term, and the long term all at the same time. You know, I really think that is the biggest takeaway. What else about your family friend? What else did you see in him that thought he was winning in retirement? Tell us about that.
Well, I thought it was definitely interesting. I mean, he seemed like he was happy and enjoying himself, and it created freedom to travel and do some things later on. But kind of just in general terms, I look at some of my previous coworkers and just other folks I've known as they retire, like this whole idea of delaying gratification until some fancy mystical day when you retire to like a, quote, better place. Well, to me, the reality is I see my friends, my family, other people around me age and whatnot. The delayed gratification doesn't really look that attractive to me as I see people literally have aged. I mean, they have physical ailments. They're not as full of vitality. They don't have as much energy. They put on a few pounds. They just don't look as healthy and vibrant or energetic or gung-ho as like, you know, a 25 or a 35-year-old. I mean, that's just kind of the reality of like our physical bodies that we travel around in. But my point is, I don't think this idea of delaying gratification, to me, that's not delayed gratification. You look around, imagine yourself 35, 40 years older. To me, that's not delayed gratification. That's going to be accelerated depression, maybe. I don't know. The other thing I wanted to say about that is one of the coolest ideas I came across here in this last month as I've been researching different topics. I came across a TED Talk. This guy talked about the idea of doing sabbaticals. Basically, every 7 years, you do a 1-year sabbatical. And I thought that was pretty profound. I've never heard anyone mention it quite like he did. And the whole general concept was if you look at your 40-year working life from age 25 to 65, that's 40 years. And if you break that 40 years up and you take the 5 years off the back end and you sprinkle those 5 years out, every 7 years, you put up 1 year down to do a break, go on a sabbatical, get a recharge, get a refresh, and you do that 5 times. So it's 7 and 1, 7 and 1, 7 and 1, et cetera, until you get to your 40-year mark. That whole idea of just bringing those 5 years off the back end, bringing them into the future and kind of sprinkling them out over the course of your career to get these little breaks, to rejuvenate, go travel, go do some big adventures that you may not be able to do when you get to that, quote, delayed gratification age of 65. You may not physically be able to do them. Mentally, you may not even be interested or even just have the whole wherewithal, and you're going to miss all those experiences. So this idea of doing a 1-year sabbatical every 7 years, plus or minus, whatever makes sense for you personally, I think that's a really good mindset going forward, especially in today's world as things are so volatile, and the idea of having a job or the same position or whatever, or being in a place in your life for a long duration is kind of not really that practical. As things change, we're all constantly doing different things, moving in different directions. So just think about, bringing some of those years off the back end, bringing them up a little bit earlier, and taking advantage of those before those years have diminished in terms of your energy and your vitality.
Oh, there's just so much to touch on there. Now, in days past, one may not have very well been able to work for a 7-year chunk and then take a year off as a sabbatical and then go back and work a 7-year chunk and take another 1 year off as a sabbatical and do that 5 times during a 40-year working career from 25 to 65. But now most people have 7 careers on average or whatever it is, so it is more likely that one's going to get to be able to do that. And that doesn't just provide for a 1-year sabbatical of doing, it's really a 1-year sabbatical of thinking and thinking about how you're thinking and exposing yourself to new ideas in a wider spectrum that you might never have realized. With the 65-year-old that you talked about, maybe he's really thinking that he did do okay, even though maybe he's doddering and kind of teetering around as he walks and he's aged or whatever. Maybe he thinks he made out all right because, again, you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with, and he might have been hanging out with teachers, and there's nothing wrong with that, but that particular person just may not have been exposed to the ideas to know that he could have been living relatively well his entire life.
Yeah, and I think it's worth analyzing the flip side of this 7-1 game plan. Like, okay, let's say you don't do that and you just keep doing the same thing, keep marching in the same direction. I think the risk of that is actually pretty high as well. And what I mean by that is the world we live in now changes so rapidly. And if you have your head buried down in one job or one activity, one task, one focus for that time frame, and you're not able to get out and explore the world and deep dive in some different topics and just kind of reboot your software, your personal software, if you will, you might wake up after 10 or 15 years and realize you're way off course in terms of where the rest of the world is headed. There's so much to keep up on. So I think there's a lot of value in just taking that 1-year sabbatical just to re-update your software, reboot, put a new operating system in your mind, and just see what new opportunities are out there. And as you move forward from there, you might do something completely different than what you were doing previously because you just discovered there's all sorts of new opportunities that have been created by all these technologies that we've talked about over the 100 episodes and just the dynamic world we live in. I think it's so important to stay fresh and keep yourself primed to do new things and stay innovative and keep moving forward.
We are in the information age, and we have been for a long time. And if you're not subjecting yourself to this information and a wider spectrum of ideas, you will get left behind sooner. John, you're someone that has enough wisdom. I mean, we're young guys. You're in your 30s. You have enough wisdom to realize what your return on time invested is and what it's worth, and to think about how you're thinking. And you don't currently work for any sort of employer because you think bigger, because you've got a lot of great ideas.
I think my best investment up to this point has been in education and gathering ideas and meeting a lot of different people from different diverse backgrounds. And that's just something, talking about compounded interest or compounded returns. When you invest in yourself, you invest in your education, those returns, those never go down in value. They just keep returning more and more because you're able to extract more ideas and information and insights away from each conversation you have, each podcast you listen to, each book you read, each webinar you attend, each seminar you attend. It just keeps constantly up-leveling your game. And it's like your lens you're looking through just gets more multifaceted, and you just start seeing things in a lot of different levels and a lot of different degrees of clarity. So I think that's really valuable.
Yeah, John, well, I really appreciate you coming on. I've always loved your fresh ideas. You really give me a lot of ideas. Sometimes things that I say on the show come from something that you told me or a resource that you connected me with. Any other thoughts?
No, I think that's great. I'm really excited. I just want to say thank you again publicly here, Keith. It's been fun to be part of the project and contribute, but I'm also one of the biggest fans here. I love listening to the show every week. I've taken a lot away from what you've done, and it's fun to watch you grow and watch you build the audience. And the feedback we get from all you out there in the audience around the world, literally, it's just been amazing that we're impacting lives on such a deep level, and that's very rewarding. So big thank you to everybody out there, and keep listening and let us know how we can help.
Thanks, John. Well, who are some of those listeners that have been impacted? Well, I just want to acknowledge real quick a few super listeners that don't just listen to the show, but these are some of the more outgoing listeners that take action or engage GRE in social media and elsewhere. I'm talking about Mark Kenny from Queens, New York. In fact, last year, Mark and I had a great Skype chat. Kim Obermeyer of Annandale, New Jersey. Kim and his teenage son listen to the show together. How cool is that? David and Sarah Hodge from Colorado. Ann Twerberg of Wausau, Wisconsin. Thanks to all of our California listeners. GRE has over 1,000 listeners from California alone. Ash Badri from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. John and Sherry Ruman from Trinidad and Tobago. Sven Multi-Storing from Germany. Ricardo Alfonso in the Netherlands. There's just so many. I can't possibly name them all. I read what you write to me, and I care about what you have to say. I appreciate those listeners that have come out to an event to meet me in person as well. And now I've got to say, if there was ever an institution created that was called the Get Rich Education Listener Hall of Fame, well, then the first inductee in that institution might be Georgia's Dave Williamson. Leading up to episode 60 in the Coffee Farm Tour in Panama, where you learn how to buy your own cash-flowing coffee farm parcels, I let listeners on the show know that I was looking for someone who wanted to meet me in Panama for that tour and attend the coffee tour with me, and then even climb Panama's highest peak with me after the tour. And we did climb the peak and see both the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans from the same point. Dave Williamson did just that. He heard my call out on the show. He met me in Panama and did all of those things with me. A listener that had the time, the financial resources, and the physical fitness to do all of that with me. Just unforgettable. And there's someone else that makes this show possible, and that is my loving, supportive, and understanding wife of 9 years, Rosanelle Weinhold. I just couldn't do this if it weren't for her. We'll be back next week for episode 101. I'm going to be doing that show from Tacoma, Washington. For the first time, we're going to go deep in discussing how geography affects your real estate investing with a pretty sophisticated guest. And I've got a feeling that you almost might want to have a map out when you're listening to that show. For my developers, John Collins and Marcus Whelan, sound engineer Vidran Jampo, web designer Nikon Roy, I'm your host Keith Weinhold. Can you believe that each of those guys have hung with my slack-jawed act for all 100 shows? Amazing. Signing off for the 100th time, thanks for being here, but as always, you weren't here for me, you were here for you. Now go out there and don't quit your daydream.
You've been listening to Get Rich Education, telling you what the wealthy won't tell you about real estate and investing.
Nothing on this show should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions of guests are their own. Information is not guaranteed. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. The host is operating on behalf of Get Rich Education, LLC exclusively.
Cash flow real estate investors nationwide and worldwide, this is Get Rich Education's Keith Weinhold. Forbes has rated Memphis, Tennessee as the #1 cash flowing market in the world. Our good friends at Mid-South Homebuyers have been Memphis's premier turnkey real estate provider for 14 years with a stellar reputation and an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. Owner Terry Kerr was born and raised in Memphis. Yeah, he knows the market and has renovated and sold over 1,000 houses in the Memphis area. Find out what their many repeat buyers already know. Their houses are completely renovated, even come with a 1-year builder's warranty and a lifelong rental guarantee. They're a perfect fit for the first-time out-of-state investor or the seasoned investor diversifying their portfolio. Mid-South Homebuyers friendly staff makes investing easy. Learn more at midsouthhomebuyers.com or give them a call at 901-217-HOME. The preceding program was brought to you by your home for wealth building, GetRichEducation.com.